Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Michelson Spark Grants program launch webinar. I'm really excited to have everyone here and super excited for the launch of this program. I wanted to do a quick overview of today's agenda. So first, I'll be discussing in general what the Michelson 20MM Foundation does in order to give you a better sense of the type of work we've done in the past, as well as work that we're interested in supporting. I'll then talk about the Spark Grant program. I'll review the application process. I'll give an example of a successful proposal, and then I will have time for Q&A at the end. So a little bit about the Michelson 20MM Foundation. We are funded by Dr. Gary Michelson. Dr. Michelson was an orthopedic spinal surgeon who made his career and his fortune in medical devices and in inventing a plethora of medical devices. As you can see, he holds over 950 patents throughout the world. He's also a signer of the Giving Pledge, where he has pledged 50% or more of his fortune to charity. Dr. Michelson has retired from medicine, and he is now working in philanthropy. Outside of the 20MM Foundation, he also runs the Michelson Found Animals Foundation, as well as a medical sciences foundation. The mission of the Michelson 20MM Foundation is to improve access, affordability, and efficacy in post-secondary education that leads to meaningful careers. Well, how do we do that? We have four main areas in which we do that work. The first area is the Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property. Obviously, given the professional career of Dr. Michelson and his prolific rate of inventing, patenting devices, it's important for him to share education in and around intellectual property to students, entrepreneurs, etc., so that they can properly protect their IP. Through the Michelson Institute for Intellectual Property, we have published a textbook in and around intellectual property. We actually have a free online Udemy course, a video series, and we've also worked with multiple colleges and universities throughout the country to bring curriculum in and around intellectual property to their school, most notably within their business programs, but we do work with other programs as well. The second focus area is our Smart Justice focus area. And the Smart Justice focus area has three pillars on which it executes its mission. So the first is higher education in prison, essentially working to bring post-secondary educational opportunities to those that are incarcerated. The second is support for justice-involved students. So for individuals who have left the criminal justice system or were formerly incarcerated, assisting them in bridging the gap to get to a post-secondary educational opportunity. And the third is removing any sort of barriers that exist for individuals with criminal records, be it occupational barriers or educational barriers. Our next focus area is impact investing. So we do targeted investing typically within ed tech companies, and we're looking to invest in mission-oriented organizations with an eye towards equity. And typically the companies that we invest in are organizations that are doing something to make higher education more attainable, accessible, or to have more successful outcomes for students. The other area in which we do impact investing is for future of work and workplace development. One of our main vehicles for impact investing is the Michelson Runway, which is an ed tech accelerator. We've run 2 cohorts of that accelerator, and primarily, again, that is focused on startups that are working within the ed tech sector. Our final focus area, and the one that I do most of my work in, is our educational access and success focus area. And I wanted to give a representation of some of the pillars of the work that we do within there. And the first is textbook affordability. The 20MM organization got into textbook affordability actually through Dr. Michelson. He learned of a story at Santa Ana College here in California where professors were purchasing textbooks out of their own funds for their students because their students couldn't afford it. While Dr. Michelson was extremely impressed by the faculty, he was also concerned overall with a system that had such disparity. He started to endow scholarships for textbooks, and as we got more and more into the textbook affordability work, we came across open educational resources. For those of you who aren't familiar, open educational resources are openly licensed, free to use educational materials. So typically they would replace a traditional textbook. We gave an initial grant of over $1 million to OpenStax, which is a leading nonprofit OER publisher based out of Rice University. We also do work in and around affordability for higher education. We do work in income share agreements, which are a way to change the paradigm in and around financing higher education. So instead of a student taking out a traditional loan, they would agree to an income share agreement where they would pay back a percentage of their income for a certain period of time. There are caps as well as floors in terms of when they have to pay back their salary and how much they do. And the idea is that it gives an incentive for educational institutions to be invested in the outcomes. So be it a four-year school, be it a coding academy, the better outcomes for the student, the quicker those income share agreements would be paid back. Lastly, we're doing work on emergency student loans. So the majority of individuals who drop out of, say, a community college here in California are dropping out for financial reasons. And most of those financial reasons are $1,000 or less. So we're looking at ways in which we can address that financial need for students and set up programs so that financial issues outside of school aren't impacting their success in the classroom. So hopefully that brief overview gives you an idea of the type of work that we do as a foundation and the type of work that we're looking to support. I'd like to next just kind of do a brief overview of the Spark Grant program. So the Spark Grant program is all about quick, just-in-time influxes of cash to organizations that are well aligned with our key target outcomes. And I'll get into later on in the presentation what those key target outcomes are. We've committed to reaching a decision on each application within 15 business days of it being submitted. In that spirit of acting quickly, we will be distributing out those funds over the course of the next 3 months until the total amount of funding is distributed. And we are looking to do a minimum of $100,000 within this first phase of the Spark Grant program. We're hoping that with the success of phase 1 of the Spark Grant program, before 2019 is over, we would have an additional phase 2 round of Spark Grants where we would receive applications. The Spark Grant program is eligible to United States-based nonprofits, institutions, as well as for-profits. However, there will be extra scrutiny for for-profits to ensure that they are really in line with our mission, as well as tackle key target outcomes. So I'd like to now just talk a little bit about how proposals will be evaluated. So we have 6 different criteria for how we'll be evaluating these proposals. or dimensions of evaluation, I should say. We have our baseline criteria, our key target outcomes, potential impact of grant, measurability of impact, long-term organizational sustainability, and the scalability of the project. And we're going to go in depth into each of these. So baseline criteria of the grant. Grant asks are up to $25,000. So that doesn't mean they have to be $25,000. You can submit a grant proposal for $10,000, for $15,000, but the maximum cap on individual grants would be $25,000. Again, we are hoping to do at least $100,000 worth of grant giving in this first phase one. Typically, the project or the proposal should be a self-contained milestone-focused project. We're looking for something where a quick infusion of cash will get you over the hump, and something that is time-based. Ideally, we would be looking for an outcome within 6 to 9 months, although we would be also open to reviewing proposals for 1 year. Types of things that we would not be open to funding, any sort of general operating expense, ongoing inventory, salaries, general working capital. We really want these grant funds to be used specifically for the project that you are proposing. This project could be an inflection point. It could be a partnership with a market leader. It could be a pilot program or a new proof of concept, and we'll talk about the idea of a pilot program in a little bit. It is okay if you are going to be using our grant money to combine with other grant money or revenue streams in order to execute on a project. If that is the case, we would just want to have a good sense of what those other revenue streams are for the project. And before we were to award our grant, we would want to have a good sense of, that money has been secured. The next dimension of evaluation is going to be the alignment of our key target outcomes. And as you can see, these are pretty similar and align well with the work that we do as an organization that I outlined earlier. The first, increase the number of underserved learners who enroll in post-secondary opportunities. The second, increase the number of individuals prepared for 21st century careers. The third, decrease the cost of post-secondary education for all students. The fourth, increase students' college persistence. The fifth, decrease students' average time to degree completion. And the sixth, advance nascent digital technologies that are relevant to learning outcomes. A proposal does not need to hit all of these key target outcomes. Obviously, I think if there are proposals that hit multiple, it would probably be beneficial to that proposal. But if your project only hits one of those key target outcomes, that would not necessarily hinder you, depending on the strength of the other dimensions on which we're evaluating the proposal. We're also looking for the potential impact of the grant. So how many individuals will the grant impact? What is the best case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? How likely is it that the project is going to be successful? We want to have a good sense of what your existing resources are. And we also want to understand, is this grant part of the overall budget for the project? And if so, what percentage? So that we have a better sense of how our grant is making an impact to you as an organization. The next dimension is measurability of impact. So we want to understand, what is the impact and how you will be measuring the impact. So we're asking for proposals to submit what metrics they will base their success on. We will then look to kind of get a better sense of if those metrics are quality. We want to have a better sense if there's realistic impact, and then also in terms of measurability of the impact, the project timeline comes into play, as again, we're looking for projects that are within a 6 to 9 month, perhaps a year time frame to do this work. We'll also take a look at the long-term organizational stability or sustainability of the organizations that are submitting proposals. We want to get a better sense of who is on the team, who are going to be the leads for this proposal. What other partners or organizations have you worked with in the past or are you working with? What is the business model for your organization? What are your current existing resources? What revenue streams outside of this particular project do you utilize for your organization? And that information will allow us to have a holistic understanding of the organization submitting a proposal. And then the last dimension of evaluation is scalability of a project. So we are looking at the market size of who would be impacted. Again, we're looking at that timeline to see if that timeline is something that's replicable and scalable. We're also looking to see, is this project something that if we hit milestones within, or this project has a positive outcome, it will allow you to do future work and hit future milestones, which we would view as positive. We also are open to funding pilot programs if they show the potential to scale. So if you have a small size pilot program and you are looking to grow that, and then perhaps scale it out to multiple sites or multiple locations, that would be a type of proposal that we would be potentially interested in. So now I'd like to talk just a little bit about the grant application and the application process. So the application will launch on April 2nd, and you can go to 20mm.org/spark-grants. And as you can see on that button, you'll just click Apply for Grant, and you'll be brought to the application. This page is not currently live. The page will hopefully be going live tomorrow. That is Friday, March 29th. However, the application itself will not go live until April 2nd. On this webpage, you will also see a lot of the material that we are covering in today's webinar in and around those key target outcomes and what we're looking to achieve. So now I'd like to share with you the application and walk through different parts of the application so that you have a better sense of what we're looking for as you're filling out your application. Just give me one moment. So it starts with an executive summary where you're giving a 1-paragraph overview of the proposed initiative. We want to get a better sense of what is the problem that this initiative is addressing. Again, what are the direct expected impact? Who are the individuals who this initiative will impact? We want a sense of what the time frame of the project will be. And then here, listing what those metrics are. So how will you be tracking success? These will be metrics that you will be reporting out to us over the period of the grant and subsequently. Again, we have those key target outcomes, which you would check all that apply. What is the total amount that you are requesting? Here, what we're looking for is a breakdown of how you will be utilizing the funds if you were to receive them. We're looking for an itemized list of anticipated expenses. Obviously, we understand you may not have, extreme detail in terms of, we'll need 10 pens and 50 notebooks, et cetera, et cetera. But as much information and detail that you can provide will help us to make an educated decision in and around your proposal. We also want to have a good sense of who are the individuals who will be working on this initiative. We want organizations to indicate the percentage of time that individuals will be working on this grant during the timeline, and also get a better sense of who would be our main point of contact. This question speaks a little bit to the Spark Grant program and why this unique grant giving model is effective and helpful for you as an organization. So we want to get a better sense of why is it important that this grant funding with an accelerated turnaround for you is exciting. Again, we've already talked about this in the dimensions of evaluation, but we want to have a sense of what, if any, opportunity to scale or grow from your project there is. We want a sense of what your leadership structure looks like and what qualities do you as an organization or you as a team have to complete this project or to get this project off the ground. We want to understand how you'll be bringing attention to this initiative via publicity, et cetera. So any sort of information you can provide us about how you'll bring overall visibility to this initiative. Of course, we want to know about your organizational budget as well as the revenue streams from your organization so that we have a better sense, again, of that sustainability. And then lastly, we just want to have a better sense of any previous grants that you've received. We're asking for the 5 most recent grants, so we have a better sense of the types of projects you've worked on in the past, the types of funders that you've worked with, as well as what those outcomes were. If you have not previously received grant funding, this will not negatively impact your application. And then lastly, we have a section that talks about if there's anything else that you would like to impart to us as we're making the decision. This next button is just going to bring you to page 2 of the application, which is entirely demographic information, name of the organization, website, email, main point of contact, etc. So for the purposes of this webinar and time, I won't be reviewing that. But the real meat and potatoes of the application is this first page. Just give me a moment as I switch back to our presentation. So the grant committee is made up of 3 individuals. We have Phil Kim, our president, Myra Lambera, who's our director of strategic initiatives, and then myself, a program officer. Now, to understand the evaluation process, I want to walk through it with you. After an application is submitted, the grant committee will do an initial assessment. Within 6 business days, you will be notified if your application is moving forward in the process. If you do move forward, a follow-up call will be scheduled within 6 to 10 business days so we can have an in-depth discussion about your proposal. Applicants that don't respond to that request for a follow-up call within 48 hours will be deemed ineligible for a Spark grant. And then we will notify you of the committee's decision within 15 business days of the application submittal date. For those who are more visual learners, we have a visual representation of what that timeline would be. Again, this is all based on a rolling application with the application launch on April 2nd. Again, we are looking to give a minimum of $100,000 out in grant funding, with the maximum individual grant being $25,000. Lastly, I wanted to share with you an example of a grant proposal that would be successful. And we actually started the Spark Grant initiative with one grant that we did prior to the application process, and that was with an organization called Reach Higher. They were founded by former First Lady Michelle Obama, and they do outreach to Generation Z students via text message in order to assist them and answer questions in and around the college application process. They're an organization that really looks to encourage underserved populations to pursue higher education. And what they used their grant funding for was to integrate with AdmitHub, which has an AI chat box in order to better optimize the way in which they were working. Prior to this grant, all of the text messaging that they were doing was done manually by humans. What AdmitHub allowed them to do is automate some of that service so that when a student is first chatting with the chat bot, that chat bot is able to answer common questions that Reach Higher is receiving. And if there is anything that the chat bot is unable to answer, the student then gets rerouted to an actual human. Now, from the student's perspective, they obviously aren't aware of this handoff and this transition, but from the organization's perspective, it allows them to dramatically scale up the work that they are doing and free up the counselors in order to have more higher level interactions with students. This really touches on two of our key target outcomes. The increase of the increase in the number of underserved learners who enroll in post-secondary opportunities, as well as advancing nascent digital technology related to learning outcomes. Again, this is a self-contained project that has a massive impact and a massive opportunity to scale. So I appreciate everyone's time in viewing this webinar. This is actually a second recording of the webinar, as the actual recording, unfortunately, was lost via some technical issues on my part. So including the chat log with all of the questions. So I do apologize. I'm going to do my best to remember some of the questions that came up via chat. I know one question was, if it is an organization eligible or encouraged to apply for multiple grants, and I think we are looking for organizations that are confident in a project proposal, and while it wouldn't hurt an organization to apply for multiple times or multiple grants, I think a higher likelihood would be a quality submission that you feel confident in once, and then if there's another opportunity or another project, perhaps in phase 2, submitting that. If you have additional questions, please feel free to email me at ryan@20mm.org. I'm happy to have 15 to 30-minute conversations with individual organizations as they are thinking about whether they are applying. There was a question in and around when the grant funding ends. And again, this is going to be entirely based on applications and how those are awarded. So we've committed to awarding out a minimum of $100,000. So, once that funding has expired, we will be closing down the application. And then hopefully we'll be relaunching for phase 2 before the end of 2019. Again, I really appreciate everyone's time today. Please feel free to reach out to me with additional questions, and I look forward to reviewing your grant proposals starting on April 2nd. Thank you so much, and everyone enjoy their day.